Okay, we are all about live here, I think. Looks like it still might be loading, but there it is. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start off. I'm Dr. Chip, and here we're going to talk about the stomach and bowels tonight. And then following would be Eddie, and the next will be Dr. Mark. So we'll go ahead and get right to it. So now first I want to talk about more of the effects of excitement and nervousness on the digestion in general, and the available energy of excitement and nervousness. Now, our bodies have a nervous system which in different states is geared for different activities. Now, when we are in this sympathetic state, this is kind of more of our fight or flight state. So that's more of when we are wanting to do some kind of work, some kind of activity, we want to run, we want to do something that helps helps us to get stuff in the environment, or it actually shuttles the blood from our internal organs to our extremities for us to do these things, such as fight or fleeing or running away. Now the parasympathetic nervous system, again, this is one that is more for your rest and digest. And so what that means is that the blood's going back to the core, to your digestive organs, to help prepare you to rest and digest. And again, it's not that these two nervous systems are independent of each other. They actually are working tandem with each other. And so it's up to us to be able to get into those states in order for us to have proper digestion and everything there too. And so again, when we have either excitement or nervousness, again, those are not bad things. Those actually help us gear for the environment if need be. But sometimes our mind can get stuck in these different states, which doesn't allow ourselves to get back into this state for us to digest properly. So again, the CNS is our central nervous system, our brain and our spinal cord, and the back. So you can see that here. Now again, when our brain is kind of not focused, thinking a lot of different things, it could be that in that sympathetic mode of still wanting to run or fight while we're just sitting there. That causes a discommunication of what we're trying to do at that present moment and what our minds think is happening. And so that the signal, or what happens is that our brain sends that signal throughout the nervous system, our spine, and through our thoracic nerves, the ones that go to the digestive organs. It sends the signal of, hey, this is not the time to digest. It's the time to run, to fight, to flee. So that's telling our bodies that you should not be digesting those foods right now. Save that energy for later. Right now, we need those muscles, your bigger organs, your muscles. I mean, the arms, the legs, to be able to fight or flee there. And so again, you can see is that if our brain is not processing something right, then we could have some. The body is kind of more of a reflection of that. So this is kind of an interesting thing here. I just want to make sure to put here. But our gut has a brain of its own. It's called the enteric nervous system. And what that means is that our gut can actually sense different things too. And so even in the environment of where we're at, we can get that gut feeling or something like butterflies in our stomach. That's actually our nervous system, our gut playing its role in trying to figure out what is needed for us in that environment. And so how the brain and the gut work together is through this nerve called the vagus nerve. And it's a cranial nerve. It's called the wandering nerve, but it's the longest cranial nerve of our body, and it extends from the brain to many, many parts of the body. And again, another fun fact too is that around 90% of the serotonin is a brain chemical or a neurotransmitter. It comes from the gut. Now serotonin, again, this is kind of helping that calm that calm state, helping you to balance out those states from being in that fight or flight to that rest and digest, like we talked about earlier. And so again, that's why it's important, is that even if we're eating different foods, it could cause us to have different brain processing. And so something that we eat continually, you could say some not so good foods for you. I mean, it could be too much sugar or too much processed foods could play an effect, again, on the gut, which again plays an effect on the brain. And so they are both connected well to where many different things in our environment can influence us, especially the thoughts that we think and what goes in our brain, and also the foods that we ingest. And so they're both very important. And so again, the nervous system, our nervous system, is the conductor or the coordinator of all the different organs. And so if our nervous system is unbalanced in some way, then it plays a role or effect on our bodily systems, including the stomach and the bowels, the digestion organs there too. And so again, that's why it's so important to keep that nervous system or our brains in good communication with our gut. And so just a tip, just a fun tip here, is that if you have any issues, that you can easily do this. You can take 5 minutes before you eat and just you could focus on your breath, or you could just breathe. Again, nice slow inhale, nice slow exhale, and just do that for 5 minutes and see how you feel. See how you feel from where you started to where you're at, and then go ahead and enjoy your food. So again, your brain and your gut will both thank you for it. So thank you for watching. I think that's it for me. We'll go ahead and turn over to Coach Eddie, and he'll take it away.
All right, thanks, Dr. Chip. So I'm going to kind of piggyback on that as it relates to the nervous systems, but also as it relates to the last thing Dr. Chip was talking about, which is gratitude. So this is going to be kind of more of the emotional perspective of why we kind of look at the stomach as well as the bowels. So kind of piggybacking, like I said, off Dr. Chip, we're looking at the autonomic nervous system, and this guy is made into two different sections. It's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, or the sympathetic nervous system is more of our fight or flight, what Dr. Chip was talking about. So we're using it when we come in more stressful situations, and it just flushes all kinds of hormones and chemicals. So it boosts our alertness to make sure we can fight or flight away from stressful situations. However, and what we have in today's society is that we can create stress by thought alone. And we can think of things in the future, or we can actually think of stressful situations in the past. Now, as it relates to this type of topic, we can be doing those same exact things as we're sitting down eating our own food. So this is the sympathetic nervous system, is what's being activated when we get ourselves in stressful situations. Now, this is what's going to happen as we increase our heart rate, our blood pressure, sweating might be involved. This is what we're looking at if we're wanting to try to fight or flight. This is not the, I guess you could say, optimal state to be in, because when we're looking at this, we tend to be in this state like 70% of the day, which is not the best way to actually digest food. But with the better way, I could say, is probably going more into the parasympathetic. But we can find out that when we're looking at the sympathetic, we may be causing a little bit of disruption within the digestive system if we're working if we're eating in a sympathetic state. So let's look at the opposite of that, which is the parasympathetic. Now this is, you can say, what Dr. Chip was talking about is the opposite. This is more for the rest and digest and repairing of not only the body but the digestive tract as well. So this is when we get done doing our little fight or flight movements, and we're able to come and sit down and relax. And this will help balance out the nervous system and getting ready to help digest food. Now, these are just a flip coin of when it comes to the sympathetic nervous system, but it's going to decrease your heart rate, decrease your blood pressure, relaxes the body, activates the metabolism, and increases the digestion. And when we get that rolling, we can assimilate much, much more nutrients. So when we're eating, let's get ourselves in this nice, relaxed state, just enjoying the food. Now, I touched on the beginning there when we're looking at the actual gratitude, and it's neat I always love looking back at the research that HeartMath is doing, but the heart is essentially a mirror image of the body. So we can look at this as maybe when we use, not only fear or worry or anger, we can look at frustration, anxiety, stress. This is going to cause a lot of different stress within the body. However, if we get ourselves in a gratitude, appreciation, love, compassion, we'll find our body as well as our digestion normalizing, and we can see a much more calm, or we could say in this presentation, more of a parasympathetic, relaxing state. And we can do that same exact thing. So if we find ourselves in more of a gratitude, much more of a gratefulness type of practice, but when we're eating, this will also allow us to decrease our heart rate, our blood pressure. It relaxes the body. I guess you could say there is some people out there that absolutely love and are grateful for working out when they're running. They're just super happy for doing it, which could do both ways. But when we're looking at eating standpoint, we can see if we find ourselves enjoying our food, being appreciative of what we have in front of us, this will also help us be more of that relaxed state for eating. And that's all I have for my little section here. And lastly is Dr. Mark.
Great. Thanks, Coach Eddie. Yeah, good information there. So I'm going to go into a little more of the anatomy, kind of tying it together here. Again, we kind of forget too about if you have questions, you can always put it in the comment sections. We can answer those either now or later. So don't forget about that in the future. But we'll go into digestive system and starting with the stomach. So this is just a crude drawing of the stomach, but it also looks at where the esophagus comes into the stomach here and as it goes into the small intestine here. Now, a couple things I wanted to point out is these valves. This is the cardiac valve right there, and then they have the gastric valve here. And Dr. Chip was talking about how the nervous system coordinates all these, and these things also there's sensors in there that pick up these signals, and a lot of that comes from the pH. Something people don't even think about at all, about the pH, about the acid base in that system and how it works. So the idea, when food comes in to the stomach, the body wants to normally try to keep that stuff that's into the stomach. And so the acidity, as the acidity comes up, then the cardiac sphincter is supposed to close, hold that down in there, and the gastric sphincter won't open until that pH gets down to around a 2. Which is really highly acidic, and so that way it knows that it's done its digestion. So as you can imagine, so many people have problems with that because if you take an antacid or whatever, then you're blocking all this acid. The proton pump inhibitors are terrible about this, but they shut down the stomach's ability to produce acid. So then these valves don't work right. So then you bloat up. And if you're bloated, it's going to ruin this gastric sphincter, which is like what we call a hiatal hernia. And so people have all kind of problems with GERD and all that kind of thing. Coming from that, it's more of a mechanical issue than anything. And so, our goal here at Natural Health is to get to the underlying cause of what's going on there and fix that. And most people don't need proton pump inhibitors. They need more stomach acid. As you age, you start to lose the ability to produce stomach acid. Again, that comes from worrying, from being in a sympathetic mode too much all the time, from not preparing to digest correctly, as we've heard from Dr. Chip and Coach Eddie. So you have to be able to be in a digestive parasympathetic dominant state for digestion to work correctly, not only because of all this, but even blood systems. The body has the blood and the muscles for sympathetic dominant for fight or flight, but it goes internally. That's why a lot of times when you eat, especially in the wintertime, you feel colder. All the blood goes internal to help carry the nutrients to all the different organs. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going on with the stomach part. This kind of ties in more of the whole system. And for folks up there a little squeamish, it may be a little much, but too bad. So the esophagus is coming down to the stomach itself here, nestled right under the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas is behind. That's what the dotted thing is. And so as this is coming down, the stomach gets the contents, gets the food, the body starts to work on that with the stomach acid on the protein and carbs part. And then as it gets to a pH, a very low number or acidic pH, the gastric sphincter opens. Then the body senses that, it squirts bile onto that. Bile is it's very basic. So it helps to balance that pH out more. Again, that's helping to emulsify fats and absorb fats and things. As that comes out, the pancreas back here is squirting in digestive enzymes. So that all has to be going on. And then it goes, through the small intestine all the way through there, coming to the ileocecal valve here, where I'll see a picture of that in a minute. And again, that runs on pH and things too. So if the pH is all screwed up from SIBO and SIBO, bacteria and viral overgrowths, or yeast or whatever else, then you got a mess. I mean, digestion doesn't work right. And so it's important to get all this coordinated. Again, that's what Dr. Chip's talking about with the nervous system, and Coach Eddie talked about the parasympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system. That all has to be working correctly. Of course, there's a ton of hormones in here that have to work right. Gastrin is a hormone release mechanically that lets the rest of the body know that there's stuff in the stomach. It gets ready for some of the other enzymes and things that come in lower in the small intestine, and that just exists. A lot of coordination has to go on there. So again, digestion is a big deal, and we ruin it most of the time in this country because we're such a big hurry, or we're all stressed out. And then pretty soon everybody's got GERD, everybody's got hiatal hernias, everybody's on proton pump inhibitors, everybody's on the purple pill, that kind of thing, and taking Tums for 20 years. I mean, you can imagine what damage that does. And another thing people don't realize also is if you screw the system up, you're not going to absorb the food you get, much less any vitamins you take. So you have to address the digestive system and get detox work. Now, detox, we talk about that a lot here at Natural Health because you have to have detox working to get the liver working correctly so the gallbladder works correctly. Now, people that have had gallbladders removed, they really have a problem, especially with proteins, because they just drip bile all day. They don't have any way to hold bile. The gallbladder's purpose is to hold bile and squirt it out when the body senses the need to do that for fats, especially fats and oils, but also to balance out this acid from the stomach. And so, again, there's all kind of problems. There's a very complicated system that works very well if you keep it in balance, but if you don't, then you have all kind of problems. So again, that's a lot of information about the stomach. If you get into the bowel, we talk about probiotics. And the probiotics, it's important to realize that because at that time, the pH has kind of gotten to the point where the bacteria can live there. And bacteria, the good bacteria, actually help to break down the food so we can absorb like B12 and some of the other vitamins that are a little hard to get a hold of for us. And so the body needs those good bacteria in there. It's when you eat too much sugar, and that goes through our processed foods, and that goes through, and the pH gets too basic. We have this SIBO, we have the overgrowth of bad bacteria or bad yeast or bad virus, whatever, and that screws up the whole lower bowel, and you're not absorbing things again. And they get some problem with hydration. You start having constipation or diarrhea. It works either way there. If it's too irritating to the bowel lining, depending on the genetics of the person, how the person handles that, it all goes crazy and you have diarrhea, whatever, or you have back and forth. So again, in natural health, working on the whole system. We're not just a stomach doctor or a liver doctor or whatever. We're working on getting everything to work correctly in coordination, working on the nervous system control, the hormone control, the pH balance, and getting the body to absorb and digest correctly so the body can heal itself, and you actually anti-age that way. People that age real quick are not digesting. They're not able to repair their bodies. So that's a lot of information there. I went through it pretty quick, and our patients that come in, we talk to them a lot about detox and digestion. That is key, or else even the nutrition we use here won't be absorbed. So a good example is some people are taking multiple vitamins that come from certain companies. If you go to the porta potty guy and have him look at, and he looks in the bottom there, there'll be the whole thing with the name right on it yet. I mean, it just goes all the way through. The body doesn't use any of it. And people spend a lot of money on vitamins, and we don't get much out of them. That's why they don't work. The vitamins always work, but if you don't digest it and absorb it, it won't work. So that's why digestion and detox is so important to get this system all working correctly. I wanted to blow up the ileocecal valve here. This is right at the end of the small intestine as it goes. This is another valve that has to work correctly. And then the appendix, people go, well, let's take your appendix out. Well, the appendix is a big lymph node. It's really there to help keep infection under control, any kind of bad bacteria and things that are going on there. And again, you take it out, you just lost it. It's like taking out your tonsils and adenoids. Those are big lymph part of your immune system. You take those out, you've lost a big piece of the puzzle there. Like taking gallbladder out. Yeah, you can live without it, but it makes the rest of the body not work right. So you want to try to keep all this stuff working in the way it's supposed to go and be healthy. So I think that pretty much is enough information for everybody tonight. You're probably grossed out by all the pictures I have on here. So I hope it doesn't ruin your supper. So the other point I wanted to make before I forget was bitters. If you remember over here about bitters, that's why people had used bitters, especially in the European countries. They always have a little glass of bitters like an hour before. That helps to get the body coordinated with the digestion. We have a product called Digest, which has bitters on the outside of the tablet you suck off. So there's just some very interesting things that you can do to help that. So anyway, we're on, of course, Facebook and Instagram right now. We'll have this posted on Friday on YouTube. We're still on there for a while. We're working with Rumble. We're working on Parler. I try to post on Gab. We're trying to keep some information around so people can pick that up. Of course, if you have any questions at all, you can always give us a call here at 217-228-2040. Also, we have a lot of on our website, Natural Health Quincy, www.naturalhealthquincy.com. We have a lot of videos about what we do here. So if you're interested, just don't know what goes on in that building, you can always look there too, and there's a lot of good information there. So I think that's enough for me. Have a great evening. We'll see you next week. Thanks.